Welcome again. We have a new guest today in our Synergita Talentcast. We have Catherine. Catherine is the founder, CEO of Civility Partners, an HR consulting firm focused on helping organizations create respectful workplace cultures. Her clients range from Fortune 500s to small business in a multitude of industries. Catherine is an HR thought leader and has appeared in such venues such as USA Today, Bloomberg, CNN, NPR, and many other national news outlets as an expert. Catherine is also an award-winning speaker, author, and blogger. Welcome, Catherine. Great to have you in our Synergita Talentcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, interesting times these days. I keep talking all the time in our podcast. Like, I can't probably say it enough that these are amazing times on how HR is getting transformed. And also, these are the times where the HR is looking to add a positive work culture in their organizations. And also they have to make sure that the performance of the employees remains strong. So how much is the influence of a strong culture on the performance management practices of the organizations, what you have seen, and how it impacts each other?
Yeah, I think they're definitely intertwined. In fact, often that is a major part of what we're doing when we're working with organizations on culture change is to adjust their performance management. I mean, truly in the big picture, performance management is about candid feedback that's going both ways, tying people's goals to the organizational goals so that they're growing together. I mean, all of those nuggets you hear about when we're talking about employee engagement or positive culture, those are all the same exact nuggets that we're talking about with performance management. So they're definitely very intertwined.
And, it's sometimes if you look at performance management, let's say I won't call it new normal. I think there's so many buzzwords now, post-pandemic, new normal. Is there anything going to change in terms of how performance managers approach? Any change in the process do you recommend? What do you forecast?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, definite. Well, let me think. The paradigm has definitely been shifting already before COVID from the annual review into, monthly formal one-on-ones and that type of thing. I think that one-on-one monthly is going to get even more, so even weekly or maybe twice a week, because of the way we're operating now, we almost need to touch base a lot more often. So I do think those performance conversations will get more and more sort of informal as employees and managers are touching base a lot more often to check in with each other. What do I need to be doing today? What are you doing today? What has to happen? So I think that's one big change, is that it will get more informal. I also hope, and I was talking about this before COVID, but would like to see this even more so with COVID, that emotions and vulnerability has to be part of the conversation now.
Right.
It's always been that, you don't get emotional at work, don't cry at work and that type of thing. And we're all vulnerable right now. We're all high stress. And I think it's going to take a long time for us all to get over our PTSD that we're going to have once this is over,
yes.
So I think just making more room for that vulnerability is going to be an important part of performance conversations as well.
And I think that also talks about how important the culture has to be people friendly, right? And a lot of companies, right, they kind of have, let's say, the performance practice based on employee development, how they are focusing on making sure the employee develop when they're in the company. There seems to be some kind of disconnect in achieving it. It's like there are some challenges in terms of how companies can link positive culture and the employment development. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I was just saying, that, employee development feels often very formal. What are your formal goals? Let's get those formal goals written out. And that's important. Certainly, we all need to have goals and achieve them. But there's more to a person than that. And there's more to growth than just setting tangible goals and achieving them. So I think if we turn our employee development towards developing the whole person, thinking about their career along with the organizational goals, so just thinking about performance management as a whole person process and not just the work part
Right.
or the quantitative part.
And I think probably the biggest challenges for the HR department, right? Now they have to be engaging with the employees even more, and not just engage, doing the right communication, choosing the right words, not overdoing it. At the same thing, trusting your employee that they are doing the right thing. What are the certain best practices would you suggest?
Unfortunately, I think it has to do with just the manager's personality and probably the relationship before all of this. So, I'm in the space of workplace bullying and addressing toxic cultures. And so if you have managers and supervisors who were toxic already or not that great, they don't even necessarily have to be toxic, but they're going to continue down that way. They're not all of a sudden going to be some great manager or supervisor, I would assume. And so I think it has a lot to do with the relationship that managers and supervisors were building prior to all of this. And so I don't know that you can change that now, other than for HR leaders to give managers and supervisors more training on having candid conversations, allowing people to be more vulnerable. So, one thing I see in toxic work environments all the time, consistently, is that managers and supervisors were never trained on how to have good conversations about behavior and performance. And so that in my mind is a risk factor for a toxic work environment is managers not being trained. So now would be a great time to start doing that and giving managers and supervisors those tools on better performance conversations, because that's the only way the organization is going to survive, if everybody is being teed up for success, and managers and supervisors need to be trained to do that.
Absolutely. So that probably comes to an important point that now not just the managers need to be trained. I guess even the HR folks need to get trained, because now it's not something most HR has gone through before, I guess. Yeah. So now that should be training for them too, right?
Yes, we're all learning a lot. And so to not engage in training right now would be silly. Now more than ever. I know training often gets cut when we're worried about cash flow and revenue, right, but we're all on a major learning curve. So recognizing that, training is super important right now. It should not be the thing that you're cutting.
Awesome. I think what you have said is basically some of the basic things what every company has to do, right? Whether it's you're a manager, you're an HR, or you're a entry-level employee, or you're a director. I think they're all in the same boat in terms of how do they work with the employee, how do they treat the peers, how do they work with HR? I mean, I'm going in Zoom calls every day, and at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what next? I feel like I've done only 30-40% of what I would do if I'm in a normal office when I go to office. And sometimes I feel that, hey, I'm micromanaging my team because I'm not seeing them in front of me, right? So it gets difficult.
Yes, that is one risk that we run, is we start to micromanage because we want to know what everybody's doing. So there is that balance of trust, and again, those relationships are important. I think whether or not an employee decides if their manager is micromanaging them or not has to do with the relationship that they have,
Awesome. Thanks for joining us for the quick take on performance management and how the HR industry can react to post-pandemic. Catherine, it's great having you. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you.